There are innumerable ways of making this work. We just have one, and this one happens to be a long swale that you see in here, artificially built because we had a grade change. A lot of these job sites are not going to have a grade change. We're going to have to change what we do in the initial portions. Number one, if you say, is find the right polymer. So we've run the bench test. We know what polymer it is. We know how long it takes to mix, and we know what kind of flock we're going to get out. And therefore, we can design everything. If you haven't seen a flock log, I'll show you a partially dissolved one. It's safe to touch. All these polymers that I deal with at least are anionic polyacrylamide blends, and as a result, you can physically eat them. They're non-toxic to you, aquatic wildlife, anything else. But they will make your intestinal system extremely slick. So you have a choice of don't put it down you, but you can play with it with your hands without any problem. There are 20 flock logs in here. Each one of them originally weighed about 8–10 pounds. You can see it's a gooey, nasty, slimy thing. And as the water comes in, it partially dissolves a little bit of this. Angie, about how many days has this been running overall, would you say? About 7? 7 days. And this log has not changed a lot of shape. It's gotten gooier, but it hasn't changed a lot of shape, and that shows you how little polymer is coming off to do a whopping job here. What we're looking for is turbulence, because the polymer that comes off here is a long chain with a bunch of charge sites coming up, and we have to get the motion of the water so that we get the particles suspended in the water to attach to or hit the charge sites on the molecule, and that's what forms the flock. So we have to have lots of motion. If I could duplicate what I wanted, it'd be a giant washing machine. That's the best type of mixing you can get. But we don't have that, and particularly in the Remy Chandler drain, we had almost no mixing because the flow was so slow. Even though we had I think it was an 11 CFS flow, it was absolutely dead laminar, so we couldn't get any mixing, and we didn't get the flock formation we were looking for. So on this one, Ingham County was kind enough to allow us a second chance, and we came up here with, and we're going to make some motion now. The system is made up of nothing but straw bales underneath, a little bit of fabric to cushion the liner from the straw. If you look down in the water, you're going to see the flock already forming. And in fact, in the eddying locations, you can see the stuff come up to the surface. All right. Sure. This is all you're doing, and you can. It'll come right up. What's that?
Is it starting to flock?
Oh, we're almost totally flocked right here. For this portion of the sediment that we're trying to capture, some of the finer sediment is still going downstream unflocked right at the moment. We originally put the erosion eels in here without any ropes on them. We found out real quickly that about 5 inches of moving water moves the erosion eels. So that's why they're tied off the way they are, and we just went back and forth to create a greater flow distance. Adds for more mixing and the same amount of space. But as you go down, as you walk, pay attention to the pools, and you'll see a lot of flock. You'll see an awful lot of the settlement is already occurring in this channel. And so when we get down to the bottom, it looks like we're wizards at this, but we've already dropped off a tremendous amount of the sediment sitting right here. So let's go on down. We chose, because Ingham County allowed us some money, is to use a 20 mil PVC. Most people try this with Visqueen, 6 mil Visqueen. First time you step in it, you puncture it, you got a hole, you got water running underneath, it's going to happen. All the polymers I carry are tested in an EPA-approved laboratory using EPA procedures, both with a Daphnia water flea and with a vertebrate, both chronic and acute. The toxicity reports are listed on the manufacturer's website. I can tell you that if they're not listed on the website, I wouldn't use any polymer. That's number one. Number two is, I'm going to have to look up the number exactly for this particular polymer. It's Flocklog 706B. I believe the LC50 is somewhere in the category of either 600 or 1,000. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it's way up there.
Milligrams per liter.
Yep.
parts per million. So part per thousand, that's very high. That's not very toxic.
Well, EPA considers anything over 420 as non-toxic. The second thing is these are all anionic, and that's very important because there's a lot of polymers out there that are claiming to be anionic and they're actually cationic. And when that happens, all the aquatic wildlife has negatively charged gills. And you put a cationic or cation in the water, it will attach to the gills and suffocate the aquatic wildlife. We will use only anionic polymers. So that's the second defense. Third one is knowing our rate of usage, and we can't do that very easily with a flock log. It's a jello on a rope, and we have no way of knowing how much polymer is coming off it very easily, but what we can do is take a project like this, know how many hours are pumping, how much water is coming through the system, how many flock logs are coming in, and quite frankly, we're at a level at around 4 parts per million is what's going in, approximately.
Right, that's a mass balance type equation.
Exactly.
How much is there and how much dissolves, how much water goes
Yep.
by.
As you walk down here, you can see that in the eddying part of things, you can see a lot of the flock has already dropped out. And if the county wants to reuse the PVC, they're probably going to be power washing this down and just power washing it right on down to the roll-off that we're going to capture at. Be my guess. Step 1, 2, and 3 have already been taken. We found out which polymer, we put the polymer in, we've mixed it, we've formed a flock. This is a settling basin, small. We're hoping to also improve this, but right at the moment we have a 24-foot roll-off, 4 foot deep, 8 feet wide. We have a baffle in the water below where you can see to kind of slow the water down. We significantly slow the water velocity, as you can see from the surface. This is what's coming in from the pumps. This is after the mixing. That's quality water right now. That's a significant difference. That work better? Okay. So, for many projects, this is already a done deal. We're done. We have created all we need to create right at the moment for just about any construction site. If you look in here, there's a lot of fine flock still floating around in there. This is not clean water yet. For construction sites, this will probably be passed. I don't know how each one of you feel because you're the ones that have to make that decision along with the contractor, but that's pretty darn good. All right. The next step is we want to take that out also, or as much of it as we can. And the way to do that, pardon me, is we can't do it anymore by settlement unless we made a huge pond out here. Take maybe days to get this to get down. So what we do is these are still long chain polymers with a little bit of flock or a little bit of sediment attached to them. We're going to filter them. This is our second go around on the filters. We started out with putting a core fiber in back of it and jute in front. Jute's a real hairy organic fiber, and therefore as the long string polymers come up against it, it filters it out. It captures the long chain polymer with all the sediment attached to it. We normally count on about 1 to 1.5 orders of magnitude of removal. And we haven't even started the real filtering side. All we have is the settlement side. This is what happens when you add the filtering side. Now we're down to about 7. All right. Now on a construction site, it may not be necessary to get to this level, but we can apply the same concept to an industrial cleanout or remediation project. And you might have PCBs, dioxins, heavy metals, all sorts of other things attached to those soil particles. And through filtration, we can get this extremely clean. We've been as low as around 6 so far. And we have the least amount of filtration going on right at the moment. If you want more filtration, the first thing you do is you sprinkle a powdered polymer right on top of the jute before you lower it in. It acts like flypaper. The next step is to put a finer filter system in there, whether it's more jute or whether it's a combination of core fiber and jute, and you sprinkle it with polymer. And now you have 2 things that happen. One is you capture a lot more, and that might be necessary. You also increase your maintenance, because what's going to happen is they're going to start to block the flow. Water's going to go over the top, which it has once we're improving this point, and it starts running down. So it becomes a you have to decide what's more important to you. Lots of maintenance or absolutely clean water. Construction sites, we're probably going to go with slightly less clean water and a lot less maintenance. Again, going to an industrial site, it might be you want to get it down to just about zero coming off the site. Just depends on what the requirements are.